in other border cities, and obviously with an important impact in our cities, because tourism is one of the main, or used to be one of the main incomes in our cities.
And Laura Carlson, there have been several reports by the State Department in recent years that the cultivation of drug crops in Mexico, not only marijuana, obviously, but also opium, have increased dramatically in recent years. Some people attribute that to the increasing number of peasants thrown off the land as a result of NAFTA, that they don't have anything. The only way to make decent income is to resort to drug cultivation. Can you talk about the impact of the drug war in the countryside?
That's true. According to statistics, there is an increase in the amount of drugs that are being grown in the countryside, and there's no question in my mind that this is a direct result of the fact that legal crops, food crops that we so much need here in Mexico, where there is a problem of hunger, have been displaced by organized crime coming in and offering everything that the government doesn't offer: a higher price for the product, credit, seeds, the kinds of conditions that farmers need in order to cultivate. And in these conditions, peasants are changing to drug crops. The problem now is that the drug war is becoming an excuse also to go into the countryside and repress certain areas and organizations that are independent. We're seeing a real problem with what we call the criminalization of social protest. So indigenous movements and other campesino peasant movements are being repressed and occupied in some cases by the military under the excuse of the drug war. Meanwhile, there's a complete lack of coherency in the policies that are coming out of Mexico and out of the United States in order to deal with this problem. There's basic root causes that have to do with a population that doesn't have jobs, a population that's been immersed in poverty with the financial crisis. There's an estimated 5.8 million more Mexicans in poverty now than there were before. And this makes it easy pickings for cartels to recruit young people who don't have other futures and to enter into areas like these rural areas where they're able to convince people to grow illicit drug crops because they have few other viable choices.
Laura Carlson, what about the U.S. backing for the war on drugs and what this means?
I think it's really an insult to the Mexican people that as this dialogue is progressing and it becomes so clear that the majority of the people do not believe that it's a winnable war, that they're angry at their president for immersing the country in a strategy that's led to a spiraling of violence. Up to 28,000 people, as was mentioned, plus a huge increase in human rights violations against the army, which is now in the streets, nearly 50,000 troops fighting this supposed war, that in the United States no one's taking note of this. And the strategy continues to be supported through the Merida Initiative. In fact, Congress just appropriated an additional $175 million to Mexico for the drug war in the supplemental appropriations. And there's another $310 million that's included in the 2011 budget. So this three-year plan to support the Mexican drug war that Bush designed is now turned into an indefinite plan under the Obama administration, despite the fact that there's been no real assessment that every indicator virtually that we have that's a serious indicator of actually weakening organized crime or of the impact on Mexican society is completely negative. And the plan itself has no benchmarks, so there's no way to really evaluate what success would even look like in this case. They know they can't wipe out cartels because that's never been done. And so there's not an exit strategy, there's no measure of success, and we keep throwing money at a problem that is literally holding the Mexican people hostage to a badly conceived and implemented security strategy.
Victor Clark, what do you think are the prospects of any change in a government policy in terms of legalization, especially now that two former presidents, Ernesto Zedillo and Vicente Fox, have both urged decriminalization? In case of Fox, he's saying legalize the production and the sale completely.
To be honest, I don't think it will happen. It is only a discussion and a sympathy with specific and focalized groups, but I don't see a sympathy from the majority of our population, probably because lack of information, because prejudice, and I don't think it is going to happen really. It is only a discussion, especially in academic sectors, with intellectuals, with these two former presidents. But at the end, it is not going to happen nothing. But also, we have now the example of the U.S. in the case of California and other states that are now discussing the possibility of legalization of marijuana. That send messages to our country also.